And Kathy, would you like to give a short introduction? Kathy's going to be helping with the webinar today as well.
Yes, thank you. We are recording for some people who couldn't make it today, and to think about improving it. So this won't be I'm Kathy Pettit. I co-direct NNIP along with Leah Hendy, who couldn't be here today. I also have lived in Washington, D.C. I've been with Urban for like 28 years and NNIP for 25 years. So it is definitely like a central passion, and we're really lucky to have to be able to coordinate the network from the Urban Institute, which is a nonprofit research organization here in Washington, D.C. that builds evidence and solutions around a bunch of different policy areas. That's anything else? We're good?
That's great. Thank you. So just a couple of notes on what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to spend the next hour learning about NNIP, understanding the mission, structure, and value of the NNIP network, and also creating opportunities for you all to start to think about how you might benefit from involvement in NNIP, and also what you might want to contribute to NNIP in your role. So this is also a time for you all to hopefully meet each other, make some connections, and yeah, start to think about what NNIP might mean to you. So just a quick overview of the agenda for the next hour. We'll do a short presentation overview of NNIP. Then we're so excited to have NNIP staff member here to share a little bit about her experience joining NNIP in 2020. We'll do a little bit of brainstorming, like to share about what kind of work we're doing in our different local contexts and what we're interested in. Then we'll learn a little bit more about some of the details of NNIP, what our strategic plan is, and what some of our internal policies look like. Hopefully we'll have time for a short discussion, and then we'll close out, and you can enjoy the rest of your day. So we'd like to start off with a quick poll in the chat just to get started, to see how much knowledge is already in the room about NNIP. We know that some folks on this call have joined NNIP in the last couple of weeks as they're settling into their new roles at partner organizations. And we know that some folks have been around for about a year and may have attended some past NNIP events. So go ahead and use the chat to please drop a number to share how much you know about NNIP. So 1 would be, I barely know anything about NNIP, and 10 would be, Emily, you can take a seat. I'll run the rest of the webinar. Great. So I'm seeing a couple of 5s, some under 5s. Awesome. Thanks everyone for sharing. It seems like there is a lot of potential and possibility in the room right now. So we're excited to have you all here to learn more about what NNIP is. And hopefully your numbers will increase a little bit by the time the hour is up.
I also think you may know more than you think you do once you start to hear and how it reflects your own homework.
Sure, that's a good point. All right, so now we're going to share just a little bit more about what NNIP is, who makes up the network, and what NNIP is all about. So let's start with the mission, which is to help local communities use data to shape strategies and investments so that all neighborhoods are places where people can thrive. And so as Kathy mentioned, for more than 2 decades, we have been doing this work, and the power of our network has really been in our partners, who are local member organizations like the ones that you all work for, as well as the Urban Institute and NNIP alumni. So our local partners Well, NNIP is a national network of local organizations in more than 30 cities in the US. And each of these organizations support their local priorities by connecting communities with data they need and the help they need to use it. So hopefully that sounds familiar to you and the work that you're doing in your partner organization. We know that our member organizations have really deep local knowledge and build relationships and trust with their communities. And that is a big part of what makes the NNIP network so strong, is being able to bring all of that work together and co-produce analyses that are relevant to local concerns. So NNIP partner organizations work in a variety of different ways, both together and also in collaboration in their local contexts and groups. But all organizations agree to serve three functions. So again, this should seem familiar. So NNIP organizations work to assemble, transform, and maintain neighborhood data across topics like education, health, and housing. A core of NNIP member organizations' work is to make sure that data is accessible to community members and the stakeholders who need to use it. And beyond any specific project, more broadly, our NNIP partner orgs work to build local capacity to use and access that data. So for example, our Detroit partner, D3, hosts a data university and data days to help their city's open data efforts. So the network is made up of individuals and organizations who fill three distinct roles. The first, as we've already talked about, are our local partners, where you all are coming from, who are really providing an evidence base for the network. Another important component is the Urban Institute, again, where Kathy and I work. And we make up a small team. We have a couple of other folks on the team who work as a backbone for the network. So we help bring in policy expertise, we facilitate training and technical assistance, and we offer network management and support for the network. And then the final component is our NNIP alumni, who bring in their experiences in NNIP with them to the new opportunities and organizations, and also share insights and connections back with the network. We'll spend a little bit more time on this later. So just a few words on the NNIP beliefs and values that really shape our work. I'll just touch on a few of these. So the first one is place matters for equity. We believe that the places where people live really affect their health, security, education, and economic success, and that we need data to understand how these issues really intersect and vary across neighborhoods and among different kinds of people. And then another one that I really like is that collaboration speeds progress. So when our local partners connect diverse changemakers in their city to create shared understanding of community issues and co-develop and build a strong culture of using data to advance equity, everyone really benefits from that work. So as a network, that's a really important part of our work, is that members are supporting each other and learning together to improve local practices. Great, and these values and beliefs you'll see will show up later in the presentation as well. But now I want to turn it over to an NNIP partner staff member, Christina Martinez, who is going to join us to share a little bit about her experience joining NNIP. Christina is a research coordinator at Community Information Now, who is NNIP's partner in San Antonio, Texas. And Christina joined the network in 2020 and has since participated in a couple of different events and initiatives with NNIP, which you'll hear more about from her. So welcome, Christina. I will give you the floor. And I'm going to stop sharing just so we can hear from you.
Great. Thank you, Emily. Thanks for that introduction and thanks for having me here. Like she said, my name's Christina. I'm a research coordinator at Community Information Now in San Antonio, and I joined the network in 2020. So I'm coming up on 4 years of being part of NNIP. I hadn't known of the network beforehand, and it seemed a little abstract to me initially until the opportunity to either like participate in events came up or like actually attend them, like participate or attend. So generally, it's been really cool to see the work that's being done by other partners and to also share what we're doing, to get like feedback or thoughts. NNIP has provided a lot of support in so many different ways, and most recently with the Impact Fellowship. So this helped us write an impact story for our organization. And I think for most of us, it's really hard to sit down and make those connections of how our work is impacting our communities. So that the fellowship gave us the time and the space and the support to be able to do that. So now we're more equipped to pursue that, like to pursue more impact stories, and put together. Sorry, I got mixed up. We're more equipped to pursue and put together more impact stories with future efforts and projects. The people in the network are also super helpful. Like when I've gotten stuck on things with R or want to see if others have done something that I haven't done before, sending out an email almost always gets a reply with something that has been extremely useful. So like with that help, we have streamlined some of our code to download ACS data, and we've also learned how to apply post-stratification weights to non-random survey samples. So like that's really cool, something I didn't know how to do before, and just something someone was willing to like spend their time on to help us with. So that's like amazing. Also currently, like we're able to work on some other type of work because of the Urban Institute. So we're looking at property appraisal data for Bexar County and trying to find absentee property owners. So this is cool because it's kind of taking us away from what we normally do and learning about a new data set. So now we know how to like what's in it, how to process it, and how to get the information we need down the line. So that's also really cool. So NNIP has been a huge asset, and there's so many of us, like we all kind of have a lot of similar skills, but just applied in different ways. So it's cool to see what others are doing and like learning what they're doing and like thinking of how we can incorporate those things into our own work. And we all have the same goal to make our communities more equitable and better places to live. So it's nice knowing that there's a team of us out there, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Thanks so much, Christina. We are happy that you are a part of it, and so grateful for you to you for coming today. So I want to open it up to you all, the new members of NNIP, just for a couple of minutes of any questions that you have about either the presentation that I just shared, the overview of NNIP, or any questions that you might have for Christina about her experience at NNIP. So feel free to put a question in the chat or unmute and share your question out loud. And I'll give it just a couple of minutes for questions to formulate. All right, I see the question in the chat. What are the longer term goals of NNIP, and where do you see the work in 5 years or 10 years? That is a great question. We are going to talk a little bit about our strategic plan later on, but Kathy, do you want to respond with a quick overview? Oh, Kathy, you're muted.
That's a really good question, and I hope you'll help to answer that along the way. But we went through strategic planning. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but and I can talk about the details. But one, really being more ambitious about how our internal network helps more places. So we have are fantastic, and you'll see quickly, like Christina said, we're a very close-knit network, but we've been trying to really think about who else we need relationships with in the national networks and different issue areas. So I hope in 5 and 10 years we have 50 partners, and that we are much more well-known than we are now. Anybody who knows NNIP in the world loves NNIP, but not enough people know us. So I'm hoping that they can benefit from everything that you guys do locally. But I will also say that hasn't been mentioned. We weren't sure what detail to go into on this. This is our first run, which Emily should have said on our intro meeting. So we have an executive committee. 2 people elected every year, including Victor. You know, a couple of you are from Milwaukee. So this is really, we own this network together. So the direction is not sort of what Kathy and Leah think necessarily, but really what the executive committee is reflecting all of you and what we hear from the partnership and where we want to go together. So it is the collaboration and so many smart people with so much great on the ground experience will push us in the right direction, I'm sure of it. And Victor was elected to the executive committee after, I think, like 3 months of being executive director. You can use. So we'll be running elections in November. You can think about if you want to get more involved in the leadership of the network too.
Thanks, Kathy. Are there any additional questions before we move on to our next activity? Again, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute. All right, well, thanks for that question. And please, as we go, if questions come up, feel free to put them in the chat. Kathy, Christine, and I can respond to them in the chat or bring them to the group if we think that that's important. So great. We are going to move on to a quick brainstorm activity on a couple of different questions. So we would like to get a feel for what knowledge and expertise is in the room right now. We know that in any given like NNIP gathering, there are people working across a variety of different projects and issues. And so we're excited to understand what's happening in your work lives right now, and also what projects you would like to learn about. So I'm going to share my screen again. Actually, I'll just put those questions in the chat. Kathy, would you mind putting those questions in the chat from the slide if you have access?
Oh, sure.
Okay. Or here, I've got it actually. So these are the questions that we're going to be considering. We are going to take about 5 minutes to populate a Google slide with these questions that will be showing up in the chat. Great, thank you. So if everybody could go to this link that Kathy just posted in the chat, you'll see that there are 2 slides there. And everybody should have access, but please raise the alert if you don't. And you'll see the first slide, the blue slide, is what local data projects are we currently working on or will be working on soon. The second slide are types of data projects that we'd like to learn more about. So let's take about 4 or 5 minutes and populate these. You can Populate the little squares by clicking on them and beginning typing. If we run out of squares and you need more, feel free to drag them from the right side. And then as we're going, if you see somebody filling in a square with something that resonates with you, something that you're also working on, or that you'd also like to learn more about, you can use a star to show your agreement or like your +1 to that square. So before I set you all loose, are there any questions about this activity? Great. Well, feel free to unmute and share any questions or put them in the chat. And we'll take about 4 minutes to do this. And in the meantime, I'm going to attempt to share some music again. Can anybody hear music? No? Okay, sorry about that.
You'll have to show me that trick later.
Yeah, I thought I knew how, but
I hear music. I don't know if
you
it's
do?
background or just really low.
Okay, maybe I need to turn it up.
Oh,
There we go. Great.
ooh. I want to know about all of these things. I'm gonna definitely save this slide. I'm so good at picking up the stars, though. I feel like this is different. Equivalent of using chopsticks to pick up these stars. Are you supposed to fill in the second one too, Emily, or is it we doing it sequentially?
Oh, no, yeah, please move on to the second one if you're ready. We'll come back together in about 2 minutes. All right, wrap up. Any last ideas that you are posting on the board? And great, let's take a look at these slides. It's so cool to see what everyone's working on. Thank you all for filling them in and participating in this. I'm wondering if anybody would share any questions that you have about any of these projects on the blue slide. Like, is there anything that you're seeing and you're like, I'd like to know a little bit more about that? Or it could be a clarifying question like, what does that word actually mean? I haven't seen that one before. Yeah, are there any questions? Feel free to unmute or share in the chat. One question I have is, what is NPOS? I see building low-tech solutions for NPOS as one of the boxes. Would anybody be up for sharing?
Nonprofit organization.
Ah, gotcha. Thank you. I haven't seen the acronym before.
It probably should have a lowercase s. That was my typo.
No, no worries.
And Finn, it's low tech solutions for doing what? What's the solution?
Yeah,
Building.
it's a variety of things, everything from kind of like impact measurement to even just project management. So for example, I'm working with a state agency that hands out about 31.2 million in tax credits annually, that they were using a Excel spreadsheet on someone's desktop to manage. So
but maybe they need higher tech.
but like, you can only go so far, like it's baby steps. You can't say here's Salesforce, right? Because that's not where they are, right? So with a colleague, we were able to just build a kind of a more like dashboard like system. So at least they could tell a story of, where tax credits were going, who was benefiting from them, what amount had been given out by the half year point, right? Very simple high level questions that they couldn't actually answer until we assisted. And in Connecticut, and I admittedly don't have the expertise to know if this is true elsewhere, we only have one purchaser of tax credits, and it's Eversource, which is our statewide utility company, and they are often the linchpin in being the gap in securing what's needed in the capital stack in development. So without them, we could have significantly less development in a state with the housing crisis. So understanding like where they're going is extremely important. And that was not a thing until about 6 months ago.
And who's working on the cardiovascular health? Is that you, Natalie? Just guessing.
How did you know? Yeah, that was me.
I'll just send you, Pittsburgh did a whole complicated sort of, not complicated, but elaborate cardiovascular health data portal through the Western Pennsylvania Regional Data Center as part of a grant that it did for us. So I'll send that to you.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Yeah, I mean, my role in this is mostly like consulting the city on how to use like spatial measures and spatial data in reference to, all the cardiovascular health work that they're doing. And I just started on it, so I don't really know too much yet. But yeah, I'm excited. And if there's anything to share, yeah, that'd be great.
It's called a data guide. I'll find it for you.
Any other follow-up questions or thoughts about the projects we're currently working on?
I did have a question for whoever wrote the first one, the using data capacity work to build an ecosystem of data users. Can anyone elaborate on that?
I'm Nally, and Fanula Darby Hudgens, everyone calls me Ben. I'm with C2 Data. I run C2 Data's data strategic planning. And what we do is work with organizations for a really long time, 18 to 20 months, to increase their data capacity right from the beginning of like understanding what's important to them, right? Like really beginning and identifying their questions. And we operate in a cohort model. And so currently we're working with the entire legal services system, the civil legal aid system within Connecticut. And we're working on a number of levels. So we're training staff, right, just in like basic data literacy. And my colleague Jackie is on the call, and they also help a lot with the training piece. And lean in hard to like understanding ethical data considerations, especially when we're working with organizations whose primary goal is to serve people who are poor. And then we're working with their leadership to identify and understand kind of shared questions and shared metrics. And then we're working with one of their universal funders to improve sort of the impact reporting. And the goal here is that if you increase the capacity of the individual, then you increase the capacity of the entire system. And the civil legal aid system is exactly that. It's a system with significant unmet need. And unless you work at the individual and system level, doing point in time anecdotally is not going to like create large change. So our next cohort is actually going to be an affordable housing cohort. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
The legal services groups need as much capacity building as we can help them with.
I mean, we should, yes.
And 4 times as much money as they get, but yes, but in the short term, what they have.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting, and maybe I'm just being like a little naysayer about it. It's sometimes the limited resource argument frustrates me, because I think that the resources that are existing aren't used super well, but we don't actually know because there's not enough data to, you know, so yeah.
It shouldn't stop you, right? It shouldn't be the end.
It shouldn't be the end.
You probably need more money. Yeah. But you can prove that once you.
Yes.
Well, thanks, y'all. I just want to touch briefly on the second slide, this purple or magenta color, before we move on to the second part of our presentation. So just want to notice, it seems like there's some interest in this group on climate data, and also like utilities, water use, and public health. So, and then also just like generalized, I see that there's like a lot of like interest and excitement in all the things, all the projects in general. So thanks for sharing your interests and what you're working on. And yeah, this data will be helpful for us as we think about future offerings on this purple slide. And we hope that y'all will continue to connect about the work that you're doing in your local context, even after you leave this call. So we are going to move on to the second part of our short presentation. I'll go ahead and share my screen. And can y'all see my screen okay? Great. Kathy is going to share a little bit about the strategic framework that we're working on.
Yes, I gave a little preview about that before. The Casey Foundation funded us to do strategic planning in last year with a committee of partners that we that really helped us dig in and just have time to reflect on the direction and where we were putting our resources and energy. And then, and fortunately, we came up with a strategic plan and then received a larger Robert Wood Johnson Foundation grant last summer that we could actually start to make progress on the plan. So we are really, really fortunate to have resources to back up the enthusiasm. The first one is to really it will sound familiar from what I started to say, which was more people in more places use data in policy and practice to distribute the resources fairly across neighborhoods. So this is really, I think, where are legal services providing, where are the low-income tax credits going, what kind of public health prevention work do we need, the real sort of programmatic sort of issue area kinds of work. How to make property appraisals fair, those kinds of things that we want to see more of, not just in the NNIP cities. The next one, to what was just mentioned, is really thinking about equity in data, sort of how to promote our values about making sure data gets back to community, for example, that they see the data chats from Milwaukee and can see how data can be used in community problem solving, really the more on the process side. And then the final one is a stronger and expanded network, which I mentioned our hopes to, we're working right now on the list of potential partner cities to start to dig into and do some more proactive outreach. So historically, we've been amazing at the third one. We have a really close community of practice network that supports the partners with a really continuously just being always interested in learning and getting better at what we're doing locally. So this external focus, we really need different kinds of engagement to expand the impact and to get. We know so much about all these topics from 32 cities in 20 plus years that we want to tell Topeka or Sacramento or other cities that are out there. So we have been trying to sort of shift to actually have a strategy for making this happen. We always said we wanted to, and to sort of set our ambitions high on this side. So we've been reaching out to NACHO, which is the National Association of City and County Housing Health Organizations, LISC and Enterprise nationally, National Housing Trust, so trying to figure out where are the networks that should know about us and know what we know about using data in communities and what are they interested in and what can we help them with. So it's been, so it's a work in progress. We're only about a year in and we're improving also as a wrapper, sort of all the communications and a new handout and how we describe ourselves and those pieces. And we're continuing to fundraise to make sure that we have the resources to do this going forward too. So most of our decisions that as we make over the next year about the activities we're doing, the sessions we have at the NNIP meeting, sort of we try to put through this lens. And there's strategies underneath. I'll just flag one about strengthening the exchange between NNIP and the Urban Institute. So we have a lot of amazing research colleagues here with 600 people at Urban. We do early childhood, the criminal legal system, workforce, education, benefit policies, of course, housing policy we do in our center. So trying to get more of a flow between both to have urban people know how much we know locally and have the local people be able to tap about, we have an expert on food security or whatever the topic is. So trying to think more about building those connections over the like over the next year or so, and to have all of you know more about Urban. So I'll pause. There's a lot more detail. I'm happy to answer or talk to anyone about it. Good. I think I send it back to you, Emily.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kathy. So this year we've also been revamping a few of our key internal policies, because we really believe that relationships are the foundation of the NNIP network, and that our network is stronger when our relationships are stronger. So we've spent some time with the executive committee and collecting feedback from our partners on the NNIP Code of Conduct and the NNIP Anti-Discrimination and Harassment Policy. Both of these documents have a lot of content. So the ones you see on the slide now, or these points from the Code of Conduct, are just a few examples. In the interest of time, we're just going to touch on these, but really encourage you to check out the Code of Conduct and the Anti-Discrimination and Anti-Harassment Policy, as they include a lot of important guidance and insight into the culture of NNIP. So I think Kathy's going to post the link to that in the chat, so you all can follow up later. And yeah, I'll just touch on these points here. So the first one we want to highlight is we ask that all NNIP partner staff work to create a safe and inclusive environment. We don't tolerate discrimination against or harassment of any participants in any form. We also hope that everyone is working to appreciate participants' varied backgrounds and experiences. We know that we all bring different backgrounds, experiences, perspectives, and motivations to this work, and that each participant's unique perspective adds a different value to the network. So we try to make an effort to understand each other's differences and experiences as best we can. And then we also all work to assume good intentions, and at the same time make sure that we repair harm when harm is done. So again, want to give each other the benefit of the doubt whenever possible, and offer grace to those who have made mistakes. And also recognize that good intentions don't necessarily mitigate harmful behavior. And so we hope that everybody proactively will acknowledge when we've caused harm, and also invest in the repair of trust and relationships when that's necessary. So just wanted to highlight these three. Again, a lot more to say about the Code of Conduct in general. We hope that you'll take some time with the Code of Conduct and the Anti-Discrimination and Anti-Harassment Policy, and always reach out to us if you have any questions about these policies, or yeah, see anything that you think might need to shift in them. Great. And then finally, in the slideshow, we wanted to return to the NNIP Alumni Network and share just a little bit more about this. So the goal of the Alumni Network is to recognize the past contributions that NNIP partner staff have made to the network, while also broadening the expertise and perspectives that are available to partners, and making sure that we're spreading NNIP values and lessons to new organizations as NNIP partner staff leave their current roles and move on to new contexts and institutions. So in the last couple of months, we've been working to really re-engage a lot of our alumni, because we see this as a really big benefit to the network, and we want to encourage you all to think about how you can engage the alumni network as current NNIP partner staff and as future alumni. So we encourage you to browse the network page on the website, which I believe Kathy is going to stick in the chat. You can see all of the alumni. We have more than 70 alumni at the moment who are current. And feel free to reach out to those folks for any questions you have about the work that they're doing, any networking that you would like to do. And also, we hope that you will consider becoming an alumni if and when you move on to an organization outside of NNIP. Obviously, you all are new to NNIP. We hope to have you in the network for a while, but we know that people do transition to different organizations, and we'd like to stay connected when that happens. So just a couple of notes about the benefits of joining the NNIP Alumni Network. Joining the Alumni Network is completely free. We ask you to renew every 2 years. So we'll just check in and find out what kind of work you're doing and make sure that you still want to be an engaged member of the network. And the benefits of the Alumni Network are great. So you get invitations to our regular partner meetings, our webinars, the events that we put on for the network. You'll also be able to interact in our partners only Google group, which is a place where a lot of NNIP connection happens. So people post questions, resources, opportunities there. And as an NNIP alumni, you get to continue to benefit from that space. And you also get guest access to private content on the NNIP website. So able to see things that the public aren't able to see on the website. I believe that's mostly like reports and recordings of webinars and things like that. So yeah, those are some of the benefits of the Alumni Network, and we hope you'll consider it when the time comes. So we're going to take a couple minutes just to see if there, firstly, are any questions that y'all have about anything that we just shared. And then we have a couple of discussion questions that we'd like to pose to y'all before we close up. So first, does anybody have any questions about the strategic plan, the alumni network, the code of conduct, or anything else from this webinar?
Or anything else we didn't cover that you want to know?
Mm-hmm.
Or chime in, like Natalie, I know you were at the meeting last year too, so if there's things, or Christina, if there's things that you think that we left out or you want to add.
All right, it seems like there's not too many questions at the moment. See, Natalie says it's a good overview. Thank you, Natalie. Great, well, we have a couple of minutes and we prepared a couple of discussion questions just to kind of tap your all's expertise and perspective in your context that we'd like to pose to you all and see if anybody has anything they'd like to share. So the first question is, why is it important that local communities are using data to shape strategies and investments? And what does this look like in your city or your town or where you're working? So yeah, I'd be curious if anybody has anything to share. You don't have to have a whole presentation or manifesto, but would love to hear how you're thinking about this question and what this is looking like for you. And feel free to share in the chat if you'd like as well.
Do you prefer the chat?
It's small enough group, feel free to jump in.
So I was sharing with Michelle, Kathy, who you know, Michelle is CT Data's executive director. I wrote this kind of ranty op-ed that I haven't published anywhere. Our Social Equity Commission recently distributed the first allotment of our cannabis money. All the money that is generated on the legalization of selling and growing cannabis. And the intention was supposed to be that the money went back to areas most impacted by the war on drugs. And the SEC didn't set up any outcomes. And so they just handed it to like traditional granting organizations who then didn't set up any priorities or verify where the money was going. And so like $5.7 million was just wasted. I mean, the commissioner has since stepped down, but it's like baseline data, like we're talking process level data, like how many people did you serve? Where did they live? And they just didn't do it. And so as a result, this could have been like a giant chunk of change to do like equity work, or at least begin to like undermine the economic violence like that's been perpetuated in communities of color, and it wasn't done.
And it probably just happened sort of quietly before it was hopefully.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, Kathy, I'm hopeful that because it was sort of reported on, that the next round of money will be.
Can push.
Yeah.
There was a great work I'm pretty sure it was Arizona, where there was a public health group in charge of that money, and it was going to go to community violence prevention groups. So at least more a targeted topic area that was there. So I also think there's really good examples around the country of there's good and bad examples around the country, but of how those pots are being used. And I'm hearing similar concerns about the opioid settlements coming down, which is even bigger money, I think, to more places. So yeah, there's opportunity lost or gained.
I also see Anastasia's comment in the chat. The local communities using data will aid communities in making smart and informed choices in healthcare, education, and housing. And that I believe my city, Milwaukee, are invested in viewing accurate data to implement positive changes, #data for good. Thanks for sharing that, Anastasia. I totally agree.
I agree with you about Milwaukee.
You're welcome. Thank you for the feedback.
We have, I can share, we have, if you ever need a pick-me-up or having a bad, sort of a rough day, we have stories on the NNIP website, including some good ones from, I'm sure, all of your cities, that we add to over time about how data makes a difference. So I just wander there when I want to feel good about
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, there's some good ones on Milwaukee.
I'll make sure to check it out.
All right, so we are reaching the end of our time together. So I want to share just a couple of notes on how you can stay connected with NNIP after this webinar. Can everyone see my screen? Kathy, could you give me a thumbs up? Great, thank you. Great, so there are a few different ways that NNIP partner staff stay connected to the network. As we mentioned before, the Google group is a great forum to ask and answer any questions that you have. It's also where we post a lot of NNIP opportunities. So it's a way to stay plugged in with the NNIP urban technical assistance offerings as well. So Kathy is going to post a link in the chat to the Google group. And if you don't have access to the Google group, feel free to let us know in the chat or reach out afterwards. We're happy to get you connected. Because I would say is like a very important way to stay connected with NNIP ongoings. But we also send out emails oftentimes, so that's another way. Keep an eye out for us in your inbox. Another way that you can stay connected with NNIP is to sign up for monthly office hours with Kathy or Leah. You'll see these notices go out on the Google group Kathy and Leah hold open office hours for a couple of hours a month where you can drop in, share any questions that you have, any resources that you'd like to share out. And what I've heard is that folks really enjoy getting some one-on-one support that way. And Kathy and Leah are also really plugged into what's going on across the network and can help you make connections with other folks who are turning over some of the same questions. And yeah, also please attend our events as they come up. We'll have webinars and idea showcases this fall. We've got the partner meeting in Detroit in September. And yeah, just keep an eye out for those events and other ways to stay involved. So I realize we're just over time. So I want to thank you all so much for spending this hour with us. And keep in touch for a follow-up email that I'll be sending out with all of these links and resources as well. But with that, anything else you'd like to say, Kathy?
Just that we love hearing from partners. So if you just have something fun you want to share with us, like your new website or a question or thought or something else you see in the field that you think we should know about, always feel free to email us directly.
Great. Thank you all. Have a good day.